Welcome to Saturday's Warrior, and we are doing a Friday night edition of our Saturday's Night Fever as we react to the BYU SMU game. Of course, this is the channel where we talk all things BYU, Big 12, conference realignment, but tonight we are focused on the BYU victory. What a game. A lot of thoughts going through my mind on this one, as I'm sure all of us. And let's see, there was a tweet that I just saw as before hopping on and just showing this guy's heart rate. I think we're all feeling that a bit right now. And I love this other tweet from Sporty. I never doubted it, or I never doubted. So yeah, I'm sure. I think all BYU fans, it was definitely a roller coaster of emotions as we went through this one with SMU. All right. So actually, let's start off. We already have a comment here from Roy Wall, and he says, I was hopeful Jake could carry over his performance from last week. He could not. Team win despite him. The defense imposed its will throughout. Yeah. Yeah, Jake definitely did not look his old self. I mean, he started out all right, other than, there was that fumble early on, and trying to pull up here my thoughts that I had. But anyway, yeah. So, but overall, I think he started out okay, but then he definitely got out of sorts. And I think losing LJ Martin and losing that element of our run game was – obviously, that was a huge detriment. There's a big drop off after LJ Martin. There's no secret there. And that was one of my concerns going into the season is, not having really built out the depth there. And with him already, talks of him being injured prior to the season. I believe that was his shoulder. But here he was playing, and now it's his ankle. I did see that it was reported he was on crutches there by the end of the game. And so I don't know how serious that is or will be, if that's just precautionary, if that's something that, he'll have to sit out sometime. I guess we will find out about that. But that's definitely going to change things for the team. But yeah, Jake, it felt like everything had sped up. And that's what we talked about, right? After that first win, it's like, okay, he looked good. It was a good FCS team, but it was an FCS team. And then as those windows got a little tighter, as things sped up a little bit more, and I think it was more of that because his throws looked more or less like Jake throws, kind of taking some chances there, obviously leading to some interceptions and losing the ball a lot, but looking more like the Jake from last season than this season. And so, yeah, I'm definitely with you there. It was disappointing. I think, I shouldn't speak for all BYU fans. A lot of BYU fans are definitely out on Jake. I was, hey, let's give him the offseason to improve. Let's see what he does. I think there's a lot of talent there and a lot of promise, and he showed a lot of that last week. But this week was just, he was all over the place. And like that throw to Marion at the end. Yeah, Marion dropped it. It was well defended there at the end, but it looked like it was meant to go over his left shoulder. Instead, he kind of had to adjust. So that's a testament to Marion being able to adjust and nearly still come down with that. And so, yeah, I do think, and a lot of criticism is on Retzlaff, right? And the other person who gets a lot of the blame and a lot of the hate is A-Rod. Obviously, a lot of head-scratching play calls. You lose your RB1, your RB2s and he's hobbled, and just some of the play calls, like on that fourth down and going for it up the gut when they're loading the box, and just inability to adjust during the game, I think is really his detriment. But it looks like he did make some adjustments. We saw them giving it to Jake and start running with the quarterback, and that actually started to open some things up for the offense and loosen them up a little bit. And because after that, I don't think it was that drive. I think it was the next one, is where Jake started taking shots down field a little bit, which we had to do. We were having no success running. And it felt like if we were that committed to running, again, I know A-Rod's philosophy is you run to open up the pass. But when our most potent weapons are, our receivers, we got some great tight ends. It just really makes me wonder, especially when our running backs are injured. And if you are that committed to it, at what point do you look at Bohannon? And there was a lot of tweets saying, is Bohannon really that bad that we can't put him in? And, I do give them credit. I mean, I wanted them to change to Bohannon the whole game. I just kept screaming, where is he? Each drive, I thought surely we're going to see Bohannon, if at least not for a drive, to see what bringing in that running element will do for the team. Instead, they decided to do that with Jake and thought that, ultimately he gave him a better shot. And they were able to pull it off with Jake in there. He looked bad for a long stint, especially in that second half. But near the end, they kind of stuck with him, and he looked like he started getting a little bit of confidence back. And so, I mean, I guess you can't argue with the results. At the end of the day, they got the win, and Jake helped him do that. But yeah, it was disappointing. We'll have to see what he does. I think next week will still be a test. Going to Wyoming, we saw what they did last year. I think it's still a good Mountain West team, and we're playing at their house. But and coming off of an emotional game, I guess technically it's a long week. We'll have one extra day to rest and prepare, but we'll see, how he looks in that game. And if we see Bohannon at all, I mean, maybe they start looking at, hey, we need to start getting Bohannon more reps this week throughout the week so that he's ready to go in. Not sure. All right. Thanks, Roy, sorry about that. So yeah, obviously, as we were talking about, big roller coaster, but I'm curious what you all think about all of that, and about Jake, and what we should do with the QB situation, and your thoughts on A-Rod, and also on the defense. I mean, that to me, I mean, yeah, everyone's going to come out of this game talking about Jake and A-Rod, and talking about A-Rod's job is on the line. We knew that, and we know that the quarterback situation is dicey. I'm just surprised. I thought Jake was going to be on a short lease. I didn't think they would pull him for incompletions or for getting sacked and things like that. But with turnovers, I thought, especially with how that game went, and especially that interception, just boneheaded. You got to throw it away. And I know he's a gamer, he's a competitor, and it's that kind of spirit that allows him to be successful when he's successful. But it just got him into trouble, and BYU lucked out. I mean, also forcing some turnovers. Defense just played out of its mind, and what a way to start the game. I think it was 2 3 and outs, and they just basically got stone pulled from the game. And for a while, it was working for SMU. Jennings definitely brought a different element to the team. And so I don't know. It took BYU a little bit of time to adjust, but they certainly did. And I mean, the fact that, they got into the red zone several times and still were not able to come away with a touchdown. And they really locked up there at the end and had the offense's back, because the offense was not doing them any favors. And I have it here somewhere, but a summary of the drives, but it was, I'll have to look for it and find it. But yeah, it was not good. It was like 3 and out, interception and fumble. It was just several drives there in the second half that were just completely, complete failure. So anyway, going through all this, I just want to kind of go through my thoughts throughout the game. Those are the big things. So let me know in the comments your thoughts on the quarterback situation. Do you think it was right to stick with Jake? Should we have seen Bohannon? And do you think A-Rod's job is his seat is getting a little bit hotter after tonight? I saw a lot of people were hot and cold. In fact, I saw this one tweet after earlier in the night calling for A-Rod and saying his seat is getting hot. And then we see that Miles Davis run and BYU go in and finally start getting some offense going at the end. And but I think this was specifically after Miles Davis says rehired. So I mean, it felt like we said a roller coaster of emotions tonight. But let's see. The just kind of going through quarter by quarter, some of my thoughts here on this. The Marion catch. Yeah, that was a catch. So I think that was right to give that to him. Oh, man. Just complaining about the play calling being uninspiring in the second quarter there. And the whole team, it looked like, at least on offense, it just looked deflated there for a while. It looked like everyone, including Jake and including A-Rod, lost confidence in Retzlaff. So talked about Martin being a big loss for this team. Really makes us one-dimensional, which again makes me oops, I froze up there. All right. Which again really makes me wonder why we didn't see more of Bohannon. But again, maybe that was just that Bohannon really hasn't been getting any of the snaps. Okay, so we're seeing Stephen McNeely. A-Rod should be gone after this season. I think that is a common sentiment for BYU fans there. And I don't disagree. You know, I've been one that's been a little bit slower to kind of turn on A-Rod. I think I've been in the mind of, you know, he's had some things going for him. Yes, there's some head scratchers, but let's let, you know, this team improve in the off season. They've brought in some new assistants, and let's see what they can do with an improved offensive line, hopefully improved running game, and see what happens there. But yeah, I'm with you that it does not seem to be getting a whole lot better. So my thing is, who are they going to replace him with? Now, obviously, it doesn't have to be a member of the church, though they could cast a wider net, but it kind of seems like they might be. So who do you think that BYU could go after if they do replace A-Rod? If they do fire A-Rod and need to replace him with a new offensive coordinator? I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. Another comment here from Roy Wall. It says, D-line looked legit. The linebackers were a menace. All-around impressive performance, holding SMU to 6 points when they started off in BYU territory for maybe 5 times. Yeah, it was the defense was just so solid tonight. It was really satisfying. And I know everyone gets frustrated when the offense doesn't play well. We want to see high scoring teams. We're used to this, QBU playing really high level offense. But man, when our defense is playing well, to me, that is exciting when we can lock people down, and very, very satisfying. I'm just trying to look here at some of I should probably refresh. I'm not sure if this is updated, but I mean, Harrison Taggart, it felt like he was all over the place. Yeah. And Glasker, he was down on the field for a minute there at the end. Hopefully he's okay. I don't know. He got up. And several others. I mean, Jack Kelly, even though he didn't lead the team in tackling, he still had 5 tackles and 1.5 TFLs, so, and a sack. So, I mean, I think his impact on the game, even when he wasn't making the tackle necessarily, was just huge. Jacob Robinson obviously came up with some key plays. So just being able to cause so much havoc for those quarterbacks was amazing. I loved it. All right. Comment here from Earl Huff. A win is a win. Yeah, absolutely. A win is a win. You got to be happy with this one because this is a good SMU team. We went to Dallas. This is the team. I mean, this game, Vegas had even bigger underdogs in this game than against Utah later in the year. So, which seems insane to me. It's interesting though, because SMU, and I talked about this in a preview for this game earlier this week, and SMU did thanks for the comment, Earl. They're looking at their stats from last year. They were top 15, top 20 in like total offense, total defense, and points scored and points allowed. And I went through and isolated their 3 games against Power 4 opponents: OU, who was a good team; TCU, who didn't make a bowl game. Good team. I mean, you look what they did to BYU, but didn't make a bowl game. And then BC was their bowl game opponent, but it's still BC, right? And all those stats dropped drastically. And I think they averaged 14 points in those 3 games. And so then we look at it tonight, they're basically right on average playing a Power 5 opponent. So I think they racked up a lot of stats, get a lot of credit for beating up on lesser competition. That's not to say they're not a good team. I think they are, and they definitely have a clear path in the ACC. If you look at their schedule, they play a lot of the bottom of the ACC. Most of their schedule is, except for Florida State, who is not looking great, and then Louisville, who seems like a legitimate team. I believe they're top 25 this week. So anyway, good team. I'm not trying to take anything away from SMU, but we saw that they struggled with teams that were getting a little bit more physical with them. And so, and that was the defensive plan, it looks like, and it was effective and it was executed beautifully. I love it. Okay. Comment here from Stephen McNeely. It says, we'll find out next week if BYU's coaches were lying when they said taking care of the football was the number one criteria for choosing the starting quarterback. That is a good point. I mean, I kept waiting. I kept thinking, okay, the first turnover, I was like, okay, I don't think his leash is that short. But after 2 turnovers and, near turnover last week too, I thought, okay, his leash has to be shorter than this, especially with the offense sputtering out. No run game going. Gary definitely brings that. And so I thought, if we're not passing it, we're not taking those shots downfield, because that was kind of the concern with Gary, is being able to kind of have the touch on some of his throws, then why not bring that in and put in a quarterback that make it hard for them to take down. But yeah, you're right. We will see next week. And I wouldn't be surprised. It took him so long to pull to pull Retzlaff tonight that I would be surprised if he didn't start next week. But I would have to assume that they're going to start getting Gary, if they aren't already, getting him a little bit more involved and getting more reps, practicing leading up to this week, and perhaps getting him in the game a little bit in case they need him later, like with Kansas State in a couple weeks. So that would be my guess. But yeah, that's a really good point. We will see where their priorities really are. Another comment here, Steven. It says BYU's linebackers are legit. Oh my, yeah. I mean, well, I was already talking about them, but yeah, they were all over the place. And that was some question, right? Especially with losing Bywater. It's like, yeah, we've got some guys, but are they ready to step up? And at least in like Harrison Taggart, is he ready for that role and to really be filling some big shoes? And it looked like he was ready. And that defense, it was so satisfying to watch. So, let's see. BYU needs another punter. I didn't think their punting was terrible. Why do you say that? I thought their punting was all right. I mean, you lost Rico, yeah, but actually that reminds me, there was another tweet. Where was it? I got too many tweets open here, but it was Johnny Linehan asking about, he said, how is it that we can make a switch at punter, but not at another position? Again, referring to quarterback. So good point. I can't find that tweet now, but valid point. I don't know. But they were really committed to Jake, and at the end it pulled off. And so, you have to assume that they know more about their team and their game plan and what they're doing, and it paid off. But you really hope that they're going to, I think, take more precautions or have maybe a fallback plan going forward. Because if Jake plays like that against like Kansas State, it's just going to be a long night for BYU, even if the defense balls out. And I thought special teams, at least on the return coverage, looked pretty good. They were often getting there to the returner pretty quickly. There was one return that they had that a guy got away and had a pretty decent return. But other than that, they look good. But man, our guys, it seems like sometimes I don't know, are we not coaching to fair catch the ball? Because we just weren't, and we're just getting creamed and annihilated on some of those. So sometimes just take, I know our guys want to, they're itching to get out and run with it, but just take the fair catch sometimes and take the easy yards and move on. But maybe the pressure was coming on too, because they're seeing that the offense was sputtering and they felt like they needed a spark. And so that's fair as well. They feel like, hey, we got to come in here and make a difference. So, again, don't try to take on more than you have to, I think. And let's see. Trying to go through here some of my thoughts throughout the game, but let me know your thoughts on A-Rod. Is he in the hot seat right now? And what did you think about the offense down the stretch? Do you think that they did enough to show, hey, we can have confidence in this team if they put it together? Or, I don't know, just what are your feelings on the offense right now? Because we ended kind of on a high with them after a big lull there in the middle. Again, I think the big question is LJ Martin's health, and we might be able to get away with it against Wyoming, but certainly not once we get into Big 12 play. And so that's my concern. I wouldn't be surprised if Martin gets held out next week just to try to make sure he's healthy and get him in there for the Kansas State game. So, all right, let's see. I mentioned that he was in crutches. So, but again, that could just be precautionary. You never know. Let's see. I've got a few things up here. The first touchdown when BYU seemed to be going on all cylinders. What a grab there. And I don't know about our tight ends and not having clean catches, but they come away with it because Keanu Hill's 2-point conversion catch there. I mean, that one was tipped, but he also didn't catch that one cleanly, but ultimately came down with it. And that's what matters. So that was a great touchdown. At that point, I thought, after watching our defense playing the way they were playing, and then to see us, be able to get a touchdown and move the ball, I was feeling pretty good about the game at that point. But anyway, after everyone turning on A-Rod, we had Johnny Linehan after the game. A-Rod is the GOAT. So obviously, again, it's those mixed emotions as we go through. I never doubted. Sure. That's how all of us are feeling. Oh, that Batty sack. Batty almost killed a man. I mean, that was, or not sack, sorry, but just that hit. It was beautiful. I think that guy, their quarterback, is definitely going to remember that one. I'm excited to go back and watch that one again. It's Tyler Batty just about killed Kevin Jennings. So yeah, that was interesting. Let's see. I like this one too. He's a Ute fan, but he says that seat for A-Rod is as hot as my wife. I have no idea what his wife looks like, but I believe that A-Rod's seat has got to be feeling uncomfortable. So again, I'm curious. I think it's too soon in the season to start talking about who can replace A-Rod. I think there's a lot of football left to play, but if you are in the camp of replacing A-Rod, I'm curious to know your thoughts on who could replace him. I think the big one would be, if you could pull a kind of Kevin Young type deal where you get, oh man, all of a sudden I'm blanking on his face. The coach, he played at Boise State. He's a offensive coordinator. Shoot. Anyway, he'd be a huge get, but I don't think he'd come in to be offensive coordinator. I think that's if you could steal him as a head coaching hire, much like you did with Kevin Young, I think would be the gameplay there. Let me know in the comments his name. I'm blanking all of a sudden. But let's see. Sergeant Pickles. Hey, thanks for joining us. Huge win for the Cougs. Yeah, it was. It was quite a game. Friday night, I think we had it's a fun game, best night game of the night. So I think this definitely got a lot of national exposure, and I think everyone was excited to see that. It's one of those. It was a Big 12 ACC, so it's only going to add fuel to the fire of I think between the competition of the two conferences. We're vying for third best, and Kellen Moore, thank you. Golly. Thank you. When you're on the spot and the harder you think of it, the less likely it's going to come to you. So yeah, Kellen Moore, that to me would be like a Kevin Young type hire if you could somehow steal him away and get him. A lot of similarities there, both offensive minded, offensive minded assistant coaches in the professional ranks. Neither one of them went to BYU and to steal and get them away. But again, I think that would be more of a Satake replacement. And I don't think Satake's seat is that hot just yet. I think there's some pressure on him, but I don't think he'd be fired after this season. This season, I think, would have to go very, very badly, which I suppose it still could. But I don't think he's there yet. But A-Rod, on the other hand, he is. So, here it was. This was I was talking about this tweet earlier, and I need to zoom in here so you guys can see those. Zoomed in on the wrong tab here. But it says 10 possessions of 4 or less plays, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble, 1 turnover on downs, 6 3-and-outs. Yeah, not great, I think, is an understatement there. So we definitely struggled there for a bit. And so I think a lot of the conversation this week is going to be about A-Rod, but I really want to focus on, we won against a tough opponent. Defense balled out. The offense found a way. And I love, when it wasn't working up the middle and our running backs are injured and you're on your 4th string running back, and I know we want to pound it up and that's kind of the style of play, but when it's just not there, I liked adding the wrinkle of Retzlaff, but then also having Miles Davis go at the edges, which hadn't really been successful. They tried it with a few other guys going around the edge. And I like that we're being a little more north and south instead of east and west all the time, like I think we saw last year. But, Miles Davis can be dangerous out there. And once he finally did get out on that, he broke away with that huge run. I mean, he's good for 1 or 2 huge electric plays a game. And so that was very well timed, very well needed. And it was a huge call. And it, gave me the chance to post the Billy Madison meme of peeing your pants is cool. Consider me Miles Davis. So I'm always happy for that. But yeah, anyway, so what's everyone's feeling? Let me know in the comments. Give me one word to summarize your feeling after this game, because I'm still trying to digest it here in real time. It was just, I don't know. I would say probably mine would be roller coaster, because that was my emotions all night. Okay, sorry, I got a couple comments here from Kate Newman. Big Blue, absolutely. What a great win. I mean, we have to be happy with the win. And BYU will go 8-4. 8-4 is I'm sorry, Nurin. I mispronounced your name. I may have still, but yeah, they could go 8-4. I'm not quite that optimistic yet. But winning this SMU game was pivotal for BYU's chances of being able to make a bowl game. You have to think you feel pretty good about going into Wyoming. Again, I wouldn't say it's a gimme, but you have to feel good about, okay, if BYU can get that, start the season 3-0, even if you lose to K-State and it's 3-1, you still have at Baylor, at ASU, and Houston at home, except Baylor put up a lot of points. So I think we'll learn a little bit of something about them tomorrow against Utah. And and then ASU started out with a big win over Wyoming to start the season. So we'll see how they do this week against the SEC opponent. They might be tougher too. And again, both of those are away games for BYU. And then Houston, you have at home. You have to hope that BYU gets at least that. So you're looking at, 4 or 5 wins at least there, you'd think. And the question is, can BYU go steal 1 or 2 against some of these other teams? We got a lot of tough opponents, but they are at LES. So that's the thought. Which games can they go steal, if any? All right. Thanks, Kay. And defense. 1-2 says defense was amazing. And it's just an understatement. They were just lights out. I'd be excited to look at some of the stats once I have time to kind of go through and look at all that. But this wasn't defense per se, but it was clip that I had pulled up, but just these opportune moments, being able to get the interception when he goes down and he's got it with one hand, just the swag that he did that with. And then the offense does its thing and turns it right back over. And then BYU really lucks out because it wasn't a force. It was an unforced error on their part with Jennings kind of trying to do that lateral to his teammate that ended up being a fumble. I do think that was the right call, by the way, that fumble. I do think it was a fumble. I don't know if it was indisputable evidence. If I were a ref, it might've been one of those, like, especially when you take that long to decide, it might've been one of those you say, hey, I think we made the wrong call, but I don't think we can overturn this. And so unlike last week, I think BYU benefited from the refs making what I think was ultimately the right call. So, and that was just huge. I'm not sure, how the game goes, obviously, if that call goes differently. Let's see. Time for backup QB to get a shot. Yeah, absolutely. Bohannon, I'd be shocked if they don't start working him in a little bit more. You have to imagine before the season that they'd have a short leash on Jake, but apparently not that short because they left him in this game. So it really makes you wonder. It's like, is there something really wrong with Bohannon that we're not seeing him? But I don't know. Another one from Steven. Defense. Yes. And let's see. Steven feels like 6-6 feels like the ceiling for this team. I don't know if it feels like the ceiling. It does feel like the best case scenario. I do think we could get to 7. 8 feels like a bit of a stretch. I do think 7 is possible. I said before the season 6-6 felt about right. I felt optimistic coming into the season, but I wasn't ready to get too hyped. But I did feel like, if they make the changes that they said they were making and they're improving in the areas they said they were improving, then pull this off. Sorry. Then they would. I felt like they're capable of winning 6 games, but I think they could go more. But you got to see more from the offense than what they did tonight. You can't turn the ball over like that. If they do, then I don't see how BYU makes it to a bowl game, because even those games against Baylor and Arizona State are going to be tough to win. Let's see here. I had some other things. I don't know. I think we covered most of it with throughout kind of haphazardly through here. We got a couple more comments here. I don't understand Retzlaff. I can't figure out, but something is off. What do you mean? Just in his play and his demeanor, or just the fact that, he can make certain throws and then he makes other really head scratching, boneheaded plays? Yeah, it's disappointing. It's frustrating because you can see it's there, but it's kind of like, I'm hesitant to do this. I don't want to get political on here, but when people talk about Trump, whether you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump, but some people, they love certain things about him and they hate the rest. But it's like, well, but those things that you love, the reason why he does that is because he's that same way doing those things that you hate. You can't kind of parse it out. And so you kind of take all of it as a package. And some people love all of that. Some people hate all of it. Some people kind of are caught in the middle. So again, don't want to get political, but just, it seems like that with Jake. It's part of what makes him great, also makes him make those crazy mistakes sometimes. And so it is frustrating, and we'll see if they can work it out of him. It's like they were saying last week. Is that who you are as a quarterback? He's starting to show us, yes, it is. And if so, I don't know what the future of the team with Jake Retzlaff looks like. Roy Wall, if this is the QB play we are going to get every week, 6 wins will be a miracle. Yeah, no, you're right. I guess I'm assuming that they clean these things up, that you still have Gary Bohannon as an option. And if Jake can kind of play more like we expect him to, I think this team is capable of winning 6-6. I still think that, and we're off to a right start to do it. But you can't turn the ball over like that so many times. Steven, QB hasn't improved. O-line hasn't improved. RB room is decimated. Yeah, tonight I thought the QB room had improved. We'll see. I mean, if they put Jake in over Bohannon, maybe that's really a bad sign for Bohannon. But I don't know. I think Jake is better than last year. At least I thought so before this game. Now I don't know what to think. I think the O-line has improved. The run game still isn't great, but I think some of that speaks more to the running backs than it does. I mean, outside of Martin, who's now injured, unfortunately. So yes, the RB room is decimated. Miles Davis again is great, but he's not going to be that guy who's just running it up the gut on you. So I don't know. I think the O-line has improved, and you've seen more from them overall being able to, I think, hold up better. But yeah, they're not perfect. Let's see. Roy Wall again. I saw marked improvement in the O-line. They weren't allowing free runners to the QB. Yeah, I think he definitely had a lot of time. I think it was actually on Jake that it felt like he had plenty of time in the pocket and he just wasn't getting it off. And all the plays, you don't always have the angle. We can't see everything he's seeing, but it felt like our receivers are good enough and tight ends too. It felt like somebody had to be there. And I don't know if he's just holding on just a touch long or what it is. First of all, I want to say I love all the comments. Thank you for everyone for commenting. This is why we do this, to get this conversation going for all of us. After a game, win or lose, I think we either need to celebrate and talk about it or get our frustrations out. But let's see. Steven says, I was surprised at the number of times the BYU offense looked like they didn't know the plays. They did look a little bit out of sorts there at moments, and you can't have that either. You can't have it at all. So hopefully this is a good wake-up call for the team. I mean, maybe last week things were a little too easy for them, and I don't know. This was a tougher competition. So hopefully they have another week to go in there, clean some things up, and then against Kansas State, hopefully have some things figured out. But, man. Going back to just because I'm going through some of these tweets I had pulled out here. I agree with Spencer Linton on this one. He says, I can't say enough. Kick the field goal on fourth down. This is when, their running backs were out. They ended up taking Ropati out and putting in their fourth stringer to – I think they put in Miles Davis, but he comes in cold to run 1 yard when they're loading the box, when you're in field goal range, especially for Farron. And he says, especially after – that was after the turnover. And with the offense playing the way it was, why not just take the points, call it a win? And Johnny Linehan kicked the field goal because the offense can't move the ball. And then he said disregard. So this was then later on in the game when we had it fourth down, and then we converted that one and some. So like I said, roller coaster. We were all over the place, but I do agree generally. I don't know, the second time I kind of liked them going for the fourth down on the second time. Of course, it's easy to say now because it worked, but the first time I was like, why not just take those points? I completely agreed with that. Okay, we got a disagreement here. All right. I don't agree with Spencer. They had 2 tries on fourth and short inside the red zone. 1 failed, but the other went for 8. Okay, so 8 is greater than 6. Yeah, you're right. Ultimately, the other did pay off. And that's what I'm saying. The first time, though, it felt like, look, you just got to turn over. Offense needs to regroup. That was that was a really quick, possession with the ball. You're in good position. Take some points in this knockout game and kind of move on. The scenario there at the end of the game, I felt like, was a little bit different, and you really needed those points. I don't know. So it's tough. But, I think if you stick with it, you have your philosophy. And, we saw it work last week on that opening drive. They converted 2 fourth downs. And I like the play call the second time. The first time, maybe that's part of it, is just it was a really bad play call, it felt like, for what they had going. So, Anyway, yeah. So, oh boy, what a game! It was a win though, so we should celebrate that. I mean, yes, there's plenty of frustration going around with certain aspects of the game, but I like to think there are things that we can clean up. The turnovers feels like maybe not. That might be just who Jake is, but I'm hopeful still for this team. I think there's enough talent with this offense. Really hope that LJ Martin can get healthy again. I'm still baffled that we were not able to get a running back out of the transfer portal, and maybe we tried, maybe they just weren't there. And so I don't know. Rapati's huge. He's a big dude, so I'm just surprised that he can't be more effective. But let's see. All right. We'll see. Steven, I got the feeling Jake was looking for a specific receiver and not making his reads. Yeah. Yeah, probably. I mean, when you're out of sorts and you kind of lock in, you kind of have predetermined what you want to do. And it might be that, it's coming in his ear too, saying, hey, we've got the matchup we want with X receiver. Cause now that he has the microphones in there, A-Rod could be giving him advice as he goes. And so, I don't know, that could be good to help, communicate with him, but it could also be getting in his head. I don't know. That is a good point though. But 1-2 says, I give Retzlaff credit on the option and trick plays. Those were all smooth, if I recall correctly. Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, there were several of those. Wasn't that first fumble though, I think was botched. Maybe that wasn't a trick play though. I was going to say that was a botched handoff that he ended up keeping and then running and then losing it. But other than that, a lot of those with all the misdirection, those a lot were. I'm just trying to think through it now. I think those were pretty good and pretty smooth. So I wonder if we just spent more time practicing those than our base plays and our simple stuff. Who knows? But I'm glad we can do that because we're going to need those to get through this season, especially if we're not going to be able to beat them straight up. So I don't know. Overall, I think we celebrate this win. We're happy. We are ahead of where everybody thought we would be in the season. And bowl game is still on the table. We got 10 more games ahead of us to win 4. So if we can win 40% of our remaining games, back to a bowl game, which I know is a low bar, but it's year 2 in the transition to the power level. So I'd say, yes, there's some frustrations. Hopefully there's plenty that this team is going to take and learn from and use as fuel, kind of regroup and figure things out. But man, that defense was just stellar. That if our offense can just improve a little bit, I think BYU can really hang in a lot of these games and surprise some people. All right. Well, I think that is about it. I think I'm now going in circles here. So, I will read. I got another comment here. SMU was 12.5 favorite by game time. They didn't show it. Yeah, and I don't know if you were on or not. Earlier in the video, I talked about their stats from last year. They ranked really high in offense and defense and everything. But then when you isolate just the 3 games they played against Power 5 opponents, those numbers all dropped drastically. And OU was really good, but they played a down TCU team. They played BC, and those numbers didn't reflect, their offense didn't ever score above 20 points. I think they averaged 14. They allowed a lot more points, I think up in the 30s. So BYU wasn't able to do that. But I think they were definitely inflated a little bit by their schedule last year. I don't know what that was based on. The fact that it was better odds than BYU has against Utah seems wild to me. Anyway, so we got the win, and unfortunately, it means we have to kind of root for SMU for the rest of the season because we want them to do well because it helps us, I guess, in our strength of schedule. But man, I don't want to root for SMU. I'm starting to see why the rest of all the Texas schools, all their old Southwest Conference foes don't like them. If you're on Twitter or anything and you see the SMU fan interactions on there, now some of those are burner accounts and just on there to agitate, but it's tough to like SMU. But it feels really good to come away with another win and be 5-0 in the all-time series against them. So anyway, yep. Steve, so you say 5-0, absolutely. So it feels really good. We can hold that over them, rub it in their face, and except we play them again next year, fortunately, in Provo. SMU was number 32, 31 in coach poll. Great road win. Yeah, and again, they are lined up to have success in the ACC their first year. They play the very bottom of the SEC teams, at least based on preseason rankings, which, as we see with Florida State, aren't always accurate, but so they could go on and the ACC looks like it's having a down year. They could make a run in the ACC and help make this win tonight look really good for us. So maybe they'll sustain it. But anyway, thank you all for joining me. It was a lot of fun. Again, we do this each week. I'll have early next week Adam on with me. We'll go through and kind of break down a little bit more our thoughts on this, as well as look ahead to next week's game, and then lining up guest for Wyoming to come on and talk about and preview the game there. And then, of course, our instant reactions to next week's game as well. So please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, do all that stuff so you can catch all that content as it comes out. And thank you so much for joining me. And as always, go Cougs.